me standing here, all these members of our society you see here, we're fully committed to this practice of Krishna consciousness. So, for that end, we have a center in Amsterdam and other centers also in the Benelux. And we live in a kind of spiritual community. And we practice a very strict, what is called sadhana. Sadhana means actually means practice in Sanskrit. So our lifestyle, our practice is very strict. And but others need not live to that level of commitment. There are a greater majority of followers of the Krishna consciousness movement who live outside of the temple community. They live their lives working, supporting their families. But they also cooperate together and hold programs and practice as much as they can at home these sadhana. So the main principle of all this is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, which we do regularly every day to purify the consciousness with spiritual sound. And this way keep the consciousness very bright, like a clean mirror. You know, dust falls on your mirror, so you have to clean it. So the consciousness, similarly, if we don't take care to clean it, then the dust of material association falls on it and it becomes cloudy. Okay? Thank you. Yes?
So the only way to elevate your spirit is to sing these mantras every day?
Well, the Vedic process, as I said, the Vedas come out of spiritual sound or mantra. So everything is centered on that. So, but when you say the only way, then it sounds to me like, someone just standing in the field, Hare Krishna, 24 hours a day, 365 days, and that's not what I'm talking about. Because the Vedic sound being the basis of everything, then it is also revealing to us through instruction how to do everything that we should do in life. So, how to work, what kind of occupation, how to conduct one's marriage life, all these sort of things are also presented within the sound of the Vedic knowledge. So we have to engage all of our senses, you see. We have this body, human body, with the whole complement of senses. We have mind, we have intellect, all of this. Because this is the principle of sacrifice. The principle of sacrifice is not to throw things out. Oh, can't use this, can't use that, can't use this. The principle is to use everything, but to use it properly. Anything else? Yes?
The color orange, where does it stand for and what is the meaning?
Okay. Basic question 1 and 2. Yeah, so the color, the saffron color, is originally taken from a kind of reddish earth which is found on the banks of certain holy rivers in India. So for thousands of years, those who took the spiritual path, they would dye their cloth with that color, and then everyone would know that this person is following that path. It's kind of like in the West, if you see someone wearing a long black robe, this white color, you think they're priests. It's a uniform of spirituality. So it's a very ancient tradition. And this mark, this is called tilak. It's also clay from riverbank, whitish clay, considered sacred. So there are chakras on the body, energy centers, and this is one of the most important, Adhyat chakra, it's called. So we mark these chakras with clay, this clay impression, and chant the name of Vishnu, the name of God. This is Keshavaya, Om Keshavaya. And so this is purifying the energy centers of the body. Yes?
The practice of yoga, it started also in India and Vedic scriptures, and later Vivekananda, Swami.
Vivekananda.
Vivekananda.
Yeah.
I don't know. But do you have anything to do with that? You believe in yoga and the meditation, the Western meditation with your body and mind together in balance?
Yeah, well, what we do is a type of yoga. Actually, yoga, as I mentioned this in the talk before, that yoga is, in one sense, a synonym for religion, in its literal sense. Yoga means a connection with God, with the Supreme. We get words in our Western language, like in English, the word yoke. Like you yoke a horse to a cart, a yoke. I'm sure in Dutch you must have a similar word. In many, especially these Germanic languages, I've found very similar words. So they're all related to the Sanskrit word yoga, which just means to connect, to link. So that's the basic meaning of the term. And so what we're doing is a form of yoga. It's called the Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti means devotion. Yoga of devotion. So in this yoga system, one devotes, that's the teaching of the Bhagavad Gita, one should devote all of his activities to God, to Krishna. Whereas in the system of yoga that you're referring to is technically called the Astanga yoga system. Astanga means yoga of 8 parts. And it was introduced long time ago by a sage named Patanjali, who wrote a book called the Yoga Sutras. So this is a form of yoga, but it's a different kind of yoga. There are several different kinds of yoga known in India. So in this yoga system, the stress is on controlling, self-control, controlling the senses of the body by asanas, by sitting in certain postures, by exercising the breath. In this way, one gains control over the senses sort of from the inside. And the yogi should withdraw himself. He should practice meditation in the mountains or in the deep forest away from the cities, so he won't be disturbed by outside society. And so it is a very internal and very demanding process. It's like we could say of yoga systems, it's the Olympic athletic system. It's or gymnastic system. In fact, the ancient Greeks, they knew about yogis in India, and they called them the gymnosophists. Sophists meaning they were men of knowledge. Gymno means they performed exercises. So yes, so it's kind of like forcible gaining control over the senses by sitting postures and breathing meditation. And this popular form of yoga that one sees in the West, in the big cities, yoga schools, and, yoga for health, and lose weight through yoga. This is okay. They've taken things from yoga, but they've actually missed the real point. Just to use yoga to trim your body is. What can I say?
I think it's just very good for people who, like, in Western society, everyone's just rushing and doing stuff and always busy and thinking their mind. And when they can do the yoga, they can just relax.
Yeah, they can. But this is not actually the goal of even that yoga system in its original form.
Okay.
You see. So they've taken things from yoga and they're using it for their own purposes. So it's but yoga, as it originally was practiced, required a person to withdraw from the world. You know, you're talking about the rush and the hurry, but they had to withdraw from that. That was like the first principle. Get out of that and go to a quiet place and sit down. And you just sit down with the purpose of sitting down. You know, this is the rest of your life. You're just going to sit. That's how they did it. This is the rest of your life. You're just going to sit there and meditate and not stop until you've reached your goal. And that's how they did it. And then sometimes it would take, there's stories, even recently in India, because the yogis, they can enter into a state of suspended animation. They go into deep trance and you can't even notice that they're a pulse or that they're breathing. And they can stay in that state for a long, long time. So they slow down the aging process. And recently I saw photos of a yogi who was over 200 years old, who lived in the Himalayas and just came down for the Kumbh Mela. That's a special spiritual festival in India, held every 12 years or so. So he died a while ago, but I saw photos of him. His disciples would bring him down. He was supposed to be 250 years old. So, you know, they might start when they're 18 years old, 20 years old, and, you know, for the rest of their life, that's all they do, is just sit and meditate. So, this is quite different from...
You think that's not the goal? Sit down and sit down for the rest of the life?
Well, it's the goal for those who can do it. But that's why there are different yoga systems. You see, yoga, the principle of yoga is one thing, but there are different ways of going about it. So for those who can do that, fine, let them do it. But in the modern age, this is a particular age, which the Vedic scriptures call the age of quarrel. It's a very disturbed age, Kali Yuga. So this modern age is so disturbed that very, very few people will be able to do this yoga system, this type of yoga. So therefore, yoga systems which encompass all activities are more recommended. There's karma yoga. Karma yoga is actually yoga for busy people. People on the go, running here and there. They should do karma yoga. That means, you know, you do your work, whatever it is, never mind, as long as it's not something too weird. But as long as it's normal, decent, professional activity, do that. And then offer the results of the work in yoga. Actually, our yoga system, Bhakti Yoga, also includes Karma Yoga. It's part of it that's taught in the Bhagavad Gita too. When Krishna speaks about that yoga system you're taught, that's also in the Bhagavad Gita, but it's a difficult process, so it's not recommended for everyone. Yes?
Nowadays there are a lot of gurus and spiritual masters. That's what I presented at least. Could you tell us something about bona fide and not bona fide? Because I know the Prabhupada and the ISKCON is bona fide. Sampradaya.
Yeah, well, in India, when you speak of Vedic knowledge being a science, a spiritual science, is taught in what are called sampradayas. That means lines of teaching. Sampradaya, or a synonym parampara, one after the other. Teacher takes a disciple, that disciple becomes a teacher, takes like that. And so in India there are about 5 or 6 recognized sampradayas of Vedic knowledge. It's like here, this is the University of Nijmegen. So this is a recognized academic institution. Students enroll here, they go through years of training, and then they come out with a diploma. And they can tell people, I graduated from the University of Nijmegen with an MA degree in sociology or something. You see? And so they can get jobs and etc., recognition based on that. And that's what is meant by bona fide. You see? Now, if someone just goes to a print shop and prints up his own diploma, but never went to the university and hangs that on his wall, then that's considered not bona fide. So in India there are these traditional lines or sampradayas of Vedic knowledge. And yeah, there are many gurus in these different sampradayas. And as long as they're connected with that sampradaya, it's considered bona fide, because Vedic knowledge is a living tradition. It has to be taught in the proper way so that it will have the desired effect. It's not just something academic, something, I mean in the sense of theoretical. It's not just some ideas not relating to anything real, but it's a teaching of a way to live. So those gurus and swamis, etc., who come in those sampradaic lines are bona fide or are authorized. And then there are many homemade gurus too. I don't want to talk about them. Yes?
What is your personal main reason to become a member of this society, and after that, spiritual master, guru?
What was my personal reason? Well, way back when I was 22 years old, I just didn't see anything else worth doing in life. So I made a decision and I stuck to it. That's yoga.
Why did you choose this society and not another?
Well, I investigated many for a number of years. And I was looking for, actually I couldn't really articulate what I was looking for, but I just sort of knew, I'll know it when I find it. And I found it in the Hare Krishna movement. And so I just stuck with that.
Do you consider yourself as an Indian guru?
Well, I'm not Indian by birth.
No, I thought so.
So I'm not an Indian guru. And guru simply means teacher. So that's what I'm doing right here. So in that sense, I'm a guru. And I happen to be teaching Vedic knowledge. So the Sanskrit word guru goes well in that connection.
You live in the temple of Amsterdam.
Well, I'm visiting there now. I don't live in Amsterdam. I move around quite a bit. Spend a lot of time in India. In Vrindavan, of course. And in Mayapur and other places.
And I have another question. Why do only the men wear the orange or green color and not the women?
Women can, if they want. She almost is. Almost she is.
And what is the white color means? Because I saw also Krishna.
Yeah, white color means married. Grihasta. Saffron color means not married. So white color is supposed to be more. Supposed to see more of them. Today we don't see so many. He used to wear white.
So divorce is possible.
Then he had a domestic.
Is
tragedy.
divorce possible for the
Huh?
Hare Krishnas? Is divorce possible for the Hare Krishnas?
What is?
A divorce, is that possible?
It happens.
And why do the man have this little...
It's called a sika.
Sorry?
It's called a sika.
Sika.
Sika in Sanskrit. It comes from the word shiksha. It's a Sanskrit word which means teaching. So when one takes a guru, starts receiving shiksha, instruction, then the head is shaved, leaving this, which is called a sika, which is just a sign that this person is under guru shiksha, is under the instruction of a guru. Yes?
Can women become a guru too?
Yes?
But are there a lot of women who do that, or are it mostly men?
Huh?
Are there a lot of women who are gurus, or are it mostly men?
Well, traditionally, throughout the centuries, there have been many women gurus, but I think more men gurus. because, well, I don't know why.
For example, when I meet people from Hare Krishna on the street, there always there's one men,
Uh-huh.
and not ever women. So there's no reason, especially reason. Yeah, now I can see, but not. Yeah, there's no.
I think it's because when you meet them on the street, these are the devotees who go out and sell books, and they go out every day, like 5-6 days a week, for 7-8 hours to sell books. And these are mostly guys. This is what kind of might say a guy thing to do. Go out.
Yeah.
And sometimes girls do that, but it's it's a little harder for them to do it.
Mhm.
That's all. Yes?
I didn't understand completely how the spiritual can be found in the material, because sometimes it looks
How the spiritual.
can be found in the material, like in behavior, and because this seems imperfect material.
Well, the actual state of affairs is that the material is found in the spiritual.
Yeah, but because
That's really what's going on.
yeah, no.
It's like because the material is the shadow
Yeah,
of the substance. So the reality is spiritual. It's just that we tend to forget that. That's all. So when I was talking about finding the spiritual in the material, all I really meant to say is waking up to reality, seeing things as they are. Just like, I'll give you a very simple example. I think this is something everyone can understand here. Is that in material science they talk about life coming from matter. They talk about life ultimately being chemicals and all of that. And so people start to see things in that way, that everything is material. But the reality, the simple reality, is that everything we know about matter, about this material world, is resting upon our minds or consciousness. That's the ultimate principle. And within consciousness, we talk about life being material. It's really fun. But all of this is coming out of consciousness. All of these ideas are produced out of consciousness. And our whole awareness of anything rests on consciousness. That's the ultimate principle. So that's the simple reality. When you just stop and think about it, you can see that's the simple. But we tend to get caught up, in the color and sound and movement around us, and we forget that. So the Vedic knowledge is just, hey, wait a minute. You are consciousness. You are consciousness, and everything is based on consciousness. So let's go deeper into pure consciousness. Let's find out what since it is the basis of everything, the basis of experience. Let's find out what it is, and let's go into it deeper and deeper and deeper. Okay. Yes?
Do you have to do special things to become a guru, or is it just practicing a lot?
Just have to do what I'm doing. Talk a lot.
But did you give that title to yourself, or was it somebody else who did it, or?
Well, it just sort of happened. I actually never had a plan for it to happen.
Okay.
It's just that I'm accustomed to, have been for many, many years, of giving these kind of lectures and talks. And others saw that people like it. And one thing leads to another.
Then you're a guru.
Yeah, that's what happened. Anything else? Yes?
Yeah. I was interested in the way that music influences your state of consciousness, and I was wondering how does it go about? Are there some certain chords that have a specific effect, or what's the process when you're chanting mantras?
Yeah, well, that's a very profound subject. Certainly, sound is the most powerful influence on consciousness. So, just like you can walk out into the bright sunlight, it's a beautiful, shining day, all of your other senses are telling you it's a wonderful day, but then you hear one nasty word directed to you, you know, you stink, or something like that. And then you just feel terrible the whole rest of the day. Everything else is nice, all of your other senses, hey, it's great, but you heard that sound and you just feel terrible. Or it can be a dark, dull, depressing day, and the opposite happens. Someone speaks to you very nicely, hello, beautiful, or something like that, and you feel a little good the rest of the day. It's just the quality of the sound, or the message of the sound. So sound is very profoundly influencing us, and the Vedas reveal this Shabda Tattva, the science of sound. So, yes, there is Vedic music, which is set up in a way to elevate the consciousness, elevate the mind. And then there are, of course, the Vedic mantras, which I already explained, but what's important there is also, it's not only the syllables, the intonation and all of that, but it's the quality of the sound, that they have to be chanted in a certain state of mind, and then that is projected through the sound. That's very, very important. So, and the Vedas teach that actually in this world of experience that we're around us, that all of this is coming out of sound, and this sound is the sound of that spirit. I was talking about the deeper reality of spirit. So the energy that emanates from that spiritual realm strikes this material realm in the form of sound. And the waves of that sound passing through this material energy is causing everything to happen. Creation, maintenance, destruction, recreation, everything is happening due to the waves of the sound.
So what happens to people who are deaf? If it's such a basic element of your belief?
Well, people who are deaf have their thoughts. That is a more subtle form of sound. Sound means vibration, so the mind has its vibrations. So our thoughts, and deaf people learn language. They learn this Braille. That's for blind people. Deaf people learn sign language, and they learn to read. So reading, this is also a form of sound, because it's just vibration in the mind.
Is it the words or what makes it? I don't really understand, because you talk about sounds and you talk about
Meaning.
words or meaning.
Yes. Yeah, well, this is a great discussion here. This is linguistics, semiotics, and all of that. But to make it simple, the Sanskrit language purports to be the right sound for the appropriate object. In other words, like the Sanskrit word for soul, atma. So this is a sound vibration that actually projects that meaning into our consciousness. So that's why Sanskrit mantras, even if you don't understand them, they have a very deep effect on the consciousness if you just hear them, even without understanding the words.
Put them in the words, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, he just saying that was so good.
Yeah, okay, Hara. Hara is referring to God's energy, which also includes this material energy, but it means primarily the spiritual energy, of which this material energy is a, as I said, reflection. So Hara, and the root of that is to steal. It's very interesting, because this energy steals our mind. Just like our minds get stolen by the material energy, as I've been explaining. So the spiritual energy also will steal our mind and take it upward to the higher class. So that's why we address that energy, the spiritual energy, Hara. And it's a call, please steal my mind. And Krishna, Hara, Krishna, Hare Krishna. Steal my mind and take it to Krishna. And Rama, when our consciousness meets Krishna, Rama means pleasure or enjoyment or happiness. So the result is higher happiness. Yes?
Yeah, as far as I've understood, it's a matter of becoming detached and not to identify with all your emotions or your thoughts, all these things. And okay, I can sometimes do that, become detached and become aware of lots of things and not to identify with them. But then again, I get all tied up in interactions and it's completely gone. How do you do this? How do you sort of integrate this state of detachment and yeah, go about doing the things with all the other people?
That's a very good question. Excellent question. And the answer is given in the Bhagavad Gita.
Bingo!
That specific question. So the answer is that it's not. Yes, detachment is there, and detachment is. I said it's proof. I said to live in this world in a detached way is proof of something. But it's proof of something else that otherwise we can't see, and that is the state of our consciousness. And I said that if one is not really on that higher state of consciousness, and then one tries to be detached, they'll get frustrated, they'll get angry, you see, they'll get disturbed in their psychology and their thinking. So therefore it's not really just detachment. That's just the symptom or the proof. But one has to elevate one's consciousness, like you said, to be attached. One should be detached from emotions, etc., 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 desires. But the emotions and the desires, they originate in the soul. Actually, their actual origin is in the soul, which is spiritual, which is our real self. So you can never be successful in just cutting yourself off from your emotions. It won't work. Because that's you. That's why, people, and it's true, it's very interesting how the Vedas say that the soul is in the heart. The heart is a chamber, pumping, it's a pump. But transcendently situated in the core of the heart is the soul, and therefore the heart is the center of all the energies of the body. So, and when people talk about how they feel, and they talk about the state of their heart. When they talk about their emotions, they talk about their heart, because the soul is seated there. So emotions are coming from you. So the thing is that you are spiritual. So we should learn to develop spiritual emotions and spiritual desires. Or in other words, we should purify our present emotions and present desires, so that their actual inner spiritual nature is revealed. And therefore, the process of, that's what yoga is all about. Speaking of yoga generally, there's a process to do that. And bhakti yoga is especially geared to do that, because it is the yoga of devotion. Bhakti meaning devotion. And that's what we do in our emotional life. We devote ourselves to other people, to various causes in our life. It's all a matter of devotion, which is a very emotional kind of thing. So bhakti yoga is a system of purifying the emotions. The emotions remain, but they're spiritual. Okay. Yes?
It's very important now that in the Hare Krishna that you spread the Krishna consciousness. So if everyone in the world would be a believer of Krishna, what would the world look like, or how do you imagine it concerning, things like politics and technology and family structures, things like that?
Well, there's two directions I could go into. Both I learned from my guru, Srila Prabhupada. So I guess I should mention both of them to have a complete answer. One is that he compared the mission of Krishna consciousness, what we're doing. He compared it to a diamond shop. And you have quite a number of these in the Benelux, I've noticed, in Amsterdam and Antwerp. seen a lot of diamond shops. So diamond shops are establishments that don't have very many customers. What they're selling is most valuable, and because it's so valuable, they don't have all that customers. So that's one thing my guru said. That a diamond shop is open on the main street, has a big sign, everyone can see it. Everyone is welcome to come in, but how many actually come in? Not many. Because not many can afford to buy diamonds. Now that doesn't mean that Krishna consciousness is somehow too expensive or too exclusive or something. It's just, well, to be quite frank, most people aren't that interested in it. And that's why this is the material world. Because most people are not interested here in the spiritual realm. So therefore they're here in the material realm. So that's one thing. Yet, knowing that we're not going to get a lot of customers, we go around and we present Krishna consciousness as if we could convert the whole world. We do it anyway. So if the world would become, most of the people in the world would become Krishna conscious to one degree or other, then we have already a model of Vedic society presented in the ancient texts. But of course, to actually conduct Vedic society, you need very highly qualified people. So I could talk about the details of that society, the Brahminical order, the order of intellectuals and teachers and spiritual persons who give knowledge. And then the next order is the Kshatriyas, the government administrators, the king, the monarch who implements these, and so on and so forth. And all of this might sound to you very archaic, and you would say, well, we've already been through something like that. In the Middle Ages, we already had priests and kings, and it didn't work, and that's why now we have plumbers. So my reply to that is that, it didn't work because the people weren't qualified. That's why it didn't work. It's not that the system itself couldn't work. It could work with the right people, because it did in ancient times. And we can't really, this was my reply to her, you can't really pass a judgment now, although some people are fond of doing that. We really can't pass a judgment on the way the society was 5,000 years ago. We have no idea what the world was like 5,000 years ago. We find some, broken temple columns in the dust. And there was a funny book written about, please don't be offended, but it was about anthropology. It was a satirical book. It was really, really good. And it was about anthropologists looking at our society 2,000 years in the future. Looking back, at this time. And it was really funny. They showed, they had in that time very interesting dress styles, and then they had an artist conception. And there was a woman, supposedly from our time, and she was wearing around her neck a toilet seat. So somehow from their, archaeological investigation, they concluded that toilet seats were women's apparel. So the book was full of really funny stuff. So this kind of, we have to factor in the element of mistake in our judgment of mistake and confusion and ignorance in our judgment of ancient civilizations. We don't know what they were like, but we do have records in the form of the Vedic scriptures. And these civilizations, obviously, they lasted for a long time, a very, very long time. The Egyptian civilization lasted from at least 5,000 BC, I think it's now said to be safely, or 5,000 years ago, 3,500 years ago to 5,000 BC. Very, very, thousands and thousands of years it existed in basically the same form with pharaohs and all of that. So we look at these ancient civilizations, and somehow they had stability. They could last for a long time. So they must have had something good there to have been able to last so long. So what they had good, they had They had qualified people who knew what they were doing within those systems.
Well, if you, you probably don't call yourself that, but maybe you're a qualified person. You would be a qualified person in a society like that.
Sure.
How would you?
Well, I wouldn't.
No.
I think my qualification is that some sort of position like that was offered to me. I wouldn't take it.
Okay, well, but still, if you could, if this is a personal question, what would your perfect world look like then?
Well, to be very honest, it's because I don't believe in a perfect world that I'm standing here like this.
Yes.
I don't believe that this material world can become perfect, and that's why I wouldn't accept such a position. Whoever accepts those type of social positions, have to be real fighters. They have to be persons who can fight against adversity every day and somehow remain enthusiastic. So that realm, even now, the realm of politics, it's quite nasty in the modern world, quite dirty. But the kind of people who become politicians, these are people I don't understand at all. I can't relate to politicians at all. How can they do that? It's something I can't penetrate. But it's necessary. I'm not saying, it's necessary. There has to be people like that. But they should be qualified. I'm not one of those kind of people, so I wouldn't even put myself hypothetically in the position you're asking me to put myself into. Yes?
Is there then not a final situation or some heaven or...
Yes, but it's not here.
No, but you talked about reincarnation.
Yes.
How long does that go further and when?
Well, it goes on as long as we remain attached to this material existence. As long as we have desires that we still think need to be satisfied through a physical body in this material world, then we take birth again. That's what we want. But actually, as I said, our desires are originally spiritual. They come from the soul, and they can really only be satisfied in the spiritual realm.
So where do you go when there's no task for you in this world anymore? When you're done reincarnated in a physical body?
Yes, when the interest in
The
material enjoyment is replaced by pure spiritual enjoyment.
What happens then? Where do you go?
You go to Krishna.
You go to Krishna.
Yes.
Is it like a heaven? Or
Well, actually, heaven is also a material concept. Heaven, as taught in the Bible, and in Sanskrit it goes by the word svarga. There are higher material realms also. It's actually very complex. Please understand what I presented you today is very simple. But when you get into Vedic presentation of the cosmos, of reality, it's extremely complex. So you have higher and higher material realms, which this is why Vedic knowledge is so important, because to access the real spiritual realm, which is where the soul actually belongs, you have to pass through so many finer and finer material realms. And from our experience here on Earth, you'll go up to the next higher realm or a few higher realms. You may think that you've achieved. That's where I really want to be, because it seems so wonderful, but it's still material.
is it true that symbolic from the tail you have, that the symbolic meaning is that Krishna can pull you up after you die and are ready to go to Krishna?
Yes, that's also there.
Okay.
Yes.
Do you believe it's possible to not want anything outside the material world when you're all surrounded by material stuff in here? And, I cannot imagine that I don't have any desires anymore in this world, because it's all surrounding me, and Do you believe it's possible?
Well, if you saw yourself as a servant of God, as a servant of the proprietor of this world, the actual owner of everything in this world, then it would be possible. Just like if, let's say, a chauffeur of some wealthy person's, Mercedes 500 or Rolls Royce. So the chauffeur drives a fancy car. The kind of car when you see on the street, you're walking down the street, you see that car and you go, wow. And here's a guy sitting in the car behind the wheel. But does he think this is my car? No, he's the chauffeur. He knows very well. I serve the big fellow who sits in the back. So when we have this conception of I'm a servant, then automatically one can live in the midst of very wonderful situation, but yet be detached from it, and still in a sense enjoy it. I mean, driving the car, he's still he's enjoying it, but he doesn't think that this is mine.
He maybe wants that.
Huh?
Maybe wants
Well,
that.
maybe he does, but that's hypothetical.
But did you reach that point for yourself, for example?
I think so, pretty well.
You have no desires, not small ones. I'm not talking about big cars and stuff. I mean, just small things like, I don't know, do good things.
Well, in terms of if one sees oneself as a servant, then there are always things that you need for your service. So, but those desires are okay. It's a question of culture and training, I mean, maybe if we were speaking, if this was a class 100 years ago, there would be a lot of things people 100 years ago couldn't understand what I'd be saying, but I think at this point they would understand better. Because 100 years ago, the culture, the idea, the conception of being a servant of some, aristocracy or more important principle was a lot more established in people's minds than now. Now everybody's free. That's the idea today that predominates in society. You can do what you like because you're individually free. But that's only a very recent conception. Yes?
I have to make an end because otherwise they lock the doors and we'll stuck here. So I want to thank you. It was very interesting, and I think has the same feeling.
Hai questo l'audio che